Hi guys, Eric Rodebois, EPGD Business Law. So we just did a 1-minute video talking about how as a business owner, it is your responsibility to make sure that all the tax returns are filed and all the tax filings are done. So let's talk about it a little bit deeper. So when you have payrolls, a lot of times people will try and do it themselves, and a lot of times people will outsource it. And there's a lot of different arrangements. So there are specific payroll companies where that's all they do. Right? All they do is they crunch the numbers. Maybe all you have to do is put in the time if you have hourly people, and then your salary people, you just have to make sure it's correct. And then every once in a while you might add bonuses or referral fees or whatever it is that you do in your organization. And then the payroll company's job is to calculate all the taxes, all the withholdings. So remember, when we're doing withholdings, there's a couple different levels. There's federal withholdings, there's state withholdings, then there's income tax withholdings. And so it's their job to make sure the math is right on those things. They withhold all those monies, and then on a quarterly basis, they send those monies somewhere else. And so the part that goes to the state goes to the state, the part that goes to the IRS goes to the IRS. And remember, there's a couple different levels for the employees. And I'm talking about W-2 employees. Not, my favorite oxymoron is 1099 employees. That doesn't exist. If you're a 1099, that means you're an independent contractor. It means you're not an employee. And what it really means is that the company or the employer doesn't have to do any withholdings for the independent contractors. So let's say I have 2 people working for me, and one person, I'm going to pay them $1,000, but I'm going to have them consistently work for me all the time doing the same thing, $1,000 a week, let's say. And so that person is going to be W-2 employee because they work for me all the time doing the same thing all the time. For those people, me as the employer, I have obligations. My obligations are to make sure that I'm withholding not only the employment taxes. So let's talk about employment taxes for a second. It's federal unemployment, it's federal Medicare, and it's it's payroll taxes. And so what we're doing is we're withholding that money, and it's 7.5%. Sorry, Social Security. It's 7.5%. And so then the employer is supposed to contribute an extra 7.5%. So fun fact, if I'm paying an employee $100 in a period, it costs me $107.5 as the employer. Now then we take another 7.5 out of the employee's paycheck, and so their net paycheck, they're only getting 92.5. 92.5 goes to them, 7.5 of theirs and 7.5 of mine, for a total of 15, goes to contribute to the federal employment taxes. And that's the real savings when you classify that other worker who, let's say I pay $1,000 to, but let's say for them it's less frequent, it's maybe only on demand, it's only on a contract basis, and so for that person I pay $1,000 to, I just pay them $1,000. That's it. I don't do any withholding, I'm not worried about Social Security or unemployment or anything. And so what happens is that $1,000 goes to them. Now the IRS is like, okay, independent contractor, that means you're running your own business, you're your own boss, so you've got to pay both parts, the 7.5 of your part and the 7.5 of the employer part. So for the independent contractor, watch this, they only get to take home 85, whereas the employee gets to take home 92.5. Wrap your head around that. And so when you're misclassifying an employee, so here's a classic one. You have the person who sits at the front desk and they answer the phone every day, and I tell them, hey, I'm just going to make you an independent contractor. Well, what I'm really doing is I'm screwing them out of 7.5% of their paycheck. And I get to save 7.5%. So I'm really being the Grinch who stole Christmas. And so again, there's no withholding on the independent contractor. Now let's go back to the employee. So the employee, first, we're doing all those employment tax withholdings. Then the IRS makes me calculate what their estimated annual income tax will be, and I'm supposed to withhold that from their paycheck because we don't trust them to pay their taxes. And what the government does is it deputizes every business, every employer in America, and it says, hey, it's your responsibility to take the taxes out of your employees' paychecks and to pay them to the IRS because we don't trust them to pay their own taxes. Okay, so then how does the IRS account for this? Well, they force the employer to file a quarterly employment tax form and an annual employment tax form, which is literally going to tell the IRS, okay, here's who was working, here's how much I withheld from them, here's how much I'm paying to the IRS. Now, for most of us business owners, we assume it's on autopilot. We assume that the payroll company is going to do a good job. And you know what they say about assumptions or assuming. And so what ends up happening is If the payroll company has a misunderstanding or they forget to do it or whatever, me, the employer, I'm on the hook. Now, I can maybe go back and sue them for malpractice, but I can't use that as a defense to the IRS. The IRS is going to say, well, didn't you notice that they weren't taking it out of your bank account? And the answer is you're supposed to notice that kind of stuff. So guys, before you get in trouble with the IRS, make sure you have a good relationship with all the people handling the money for your company. And if you have any questions about any of this, give me a call.